You need to smile because you're talking to people, you're not talking to machines. So you need to smile because I see you, you're all looking good, so I should smile to you. So good morning, all of you.
I would like to take that as the right answer. But let's move on now. Within your party, we're seeing two candidates emerge. I don't know what the response will be. The exercise was conducted and Asue Ighodalo emerged winner. But there has been issues even before that particular exercise by 9 other aspirants, which has now culminated in the party having 2 people claiming the right to the tickets of the party. What's the reaction of the National Working Committee?
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you this morning. I think we should put on the premise. Clearly, we do not have 2 candidates. We don't have parallel candidates. We didn't have parallel primaries. But I need to put it in perspective so that we can understand the processes of primary elections. Under the guidelines, the Electoral Act, our internal guidelines, and the Constitution, the body that has the power and the authority to conduct primary election and congresses for political parties is the National Working Committee of the party. In our case, the National Working Committee of the PDP. In course of this process, we started out to issue our schedules and timelines for each of the activities relating to the primary election. And the beginning was to have the 3 ad hoc delegates. In doing this, the party issued details. In the details that we issued, among that was the venue and the processes and procedure for conducting the delegate election to elect 3 ad hoc for the 192 wards in Edo State. Before then, we issued a statement which was published to identify the location and the venue. And what we were guided adequately so in accordance with the procedures and the law by advertising that the delegate elections for the election of the 3 ad hoc delegates would be conducted and the venue accredited and identified by INEC. That's in the public domain. It was published in 2 national dailies. On the day set aside and scheduled for that process, party members went to those designated locations as published, and the election were conducted. And 3 ad hoc delegates emerged for each of those local government, except for 1, which was again redone. I think 2 local governments in the northern part of the state. Thereafter, in accordance with the processes that is established in our party, when people have grievances and complain against the process, there's an appeal panel. Petitions were sent to the appeal panel, they were considered, and the appeal, in its wisdom, after considering all the issues, sent a report approving of that process as having been substantially in compliance with the guidelines, with the laws, and with the rules. In line with the processes that is embedded in this system, the party, the NWC, sat to consider the appeal panel report, and its wisdom approved that process. And thereafter, we proceeded to the primary. Again, for transparency, for clarity, and for fairness, the venue, the date, the time for the primary election, and the list of delegates, as well as the list of the electoral committee of the party, headed by the governor of Zamfara State and co-chaired by the governor of Delta State. with Senator James Manager as secretary. The committee comprised of notable Nigerians, senior advocates, great politicians, and they came in. They conducted the primaries. The whole process was transmitted live. And so, from that process, Asue, Ighodalo emerged.
Right.
And that is where we are.
Well,
so that is the in line with the laws.
Right.
That is the correct process.
Right.
And that is the legal process in line with the Constitution, in line with the Electoral Act, in line with our processes, in line with our guidelines.
If I can come in now.
We do not have two congresses.
So what does that make the Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu? Mr. Logrungba.
Sorry?
I said, so what does that make the Deputy Governor, Mr. Philip Shaibu?
What do I make of that?
What does that make him? If you say that Mr. Asue Ighodalo is the rightful candidate of the party, what does that make the Deputy Governor, who's also laying claim to this?
No, again, you see, I am not going to be commenting on what I make about the claim. What I have just simply set out is to show the process, the procedure, in line with the laws, in line with our guidelines, and the steps we have taken as a party. One, to ensure that there's a fair and free process, to ensure that there's a clarity, and the fact that every aspirant has the opportunity, because what we did, our own job is to make sure that the rules are clear and that every aspirant have the opportunity.
I understand, Mr. Logrungba. I just want to lay the cards bare.
And so we publish that.
Right, pardon me. I just want to lay the cards bare, really, so we are clear. So you said Mr. Asue Ighodalo is a candidate. Mr. Philip Shaibu, the Deputy Governor, and you saw what he said there after the process was conducted. For people who are watching and they're still confused, particularly young Nigerians who I imagine that the PDP is trying to encourage to get into governance, to participate actively, what would you tell them about what is playing out? What does that make Mr. Philip Shaibu? Let's speak to the issues clearly. Is he the candidate or not?
No, the issues are clear, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle, there's only one issue that is clear, and I've clarified that, Kyle, is the fact that there's a process. And when there's a process, and they are clear, and you have followed that, the outcome of that becomes very clear.
But you're quiet
so
about the Deputy Governor, is what I'm saying. And a lot of people want you to speak to that. Would you just allow him carry on as will I say, parallel candidate? You know, all of these terms are going across parallel candidates, the second candidate of the party. Would you allow that go on, is what I'm asking?
No, exactly. That is not going to happen with us. That is why, like I always reference, the PDP has an internal resolution mechanism that is very robust. And I can tell you this. You know, elections are it's an emotive thing, and people can feel in a particular way, either rightly or wrongly, but the processes should be followed. For us, we know we have gotten to the next stage of getting our party members together, and that is the next stage. But the question to ask is this: have you followed the due process? If you have, if someone has emerged through that process, that we as NWC have tried as much as possible to make very clear. From all I have said in terms of how we proceeded, when there are complaints like there is right now, the internal mechanism of the party will kick in. And I'm sure we're at that level. I know the Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu, to be a party man. I know that Philip Shaibu means well for the Edo State. And I think what is important here is to look at what we are in this country today in terms of life, in terms of insecurity, in terms of almost absence of governance at the federal level, particularly from the APC. What is key to Edo State people today is to find that, yes, we have a governor in Edo State who is reasonably doing very well. And to that extent, the Edo State, or they require from the PDP, is to have a united front to continue to have that dividend of democracy
but Mr. Ologwagba,
arising from the performance of the...
Pardon me if I may come in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does the party at the national level acknowledge the complaints by the deputy governor and his supporters that they were excluded from the process? They were denied admission into the venue of the primaries. Is the party addressing that?
Well, I can't speak to that specifically about that, but I do know that for every complaint, again, maybe I may just step back and give you the process. After the primary, there was another committee, which is the appeal panel for the primary consideration if there are complaints. Petitions were sent in, and the petition was substantially in complaint about how the delegates emerged. There was no complaint about or against the primary election process. What was said to me now seems it's not before us. I'm not conscious of that. I didn't see that report of denial of people into the access. In any event, people were accredited. Those are delegates. I understand they were accredited, which is in line with the process, and they were led into the venue. Those whose name have been published as emerged from the primary process in terms of the congresses that produced the 3 adult delegates.
But the delegate system
is... the report as to people being prevented from coming to the venue, I don't have that, and I can't substantiate that right now. Because we didn't have that at the National Working Committee level, and I think we may need to look into that again if that is true at all.
But how the delegates emerge in the primary is just as critical as the process itself. And if you're saying that you are not aware of the report about denial of admission into the venue, isn't the party running the risk of being seen as partial to the governor?
Deputy governor.
Well, I mean, again, that would be your own. That would be your own assumption. But I have just laid out the processes for the party. Look, we started from the 3 adult delegate election. We published the venue for them. There are no venues. All the venues are public places as accredited by INEC. In fact, we got those information from INEC, and it was rightly published. In the primary process, in terms of getting adult delegates, what you do is to talk to party members, and delegates would contest, and they would emerge as having been successful to be delegates for that election. And that's what we did. And those that were successful and confirmed by their peer panel set up for that process as having been done in accordance substantially with the guidelines and rules and the law, they were published. And the venue of the primary election was made public, the location, the time, and the processes were all open. The good thing was that all these processes were live telecast, and the records are there. The exit and the entry point, it was live. There was nothing partial about that. And in any event, there's no reason for us to be partial with the governor. The processes have been opened in line with our guidelines. It has been followed methodically and carefully in line with that. And I challenge anyone to say that all I have said was not consistent with what is in line with our own processes.